Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the South Carolina Arts Commission and ArtsGrowSC's Teaching Artist Webinar number 8. We're excited that you're here. Today, we're going to be talking about resources that are available to you as a teaching artist. So I am going to now hand it over to our fearless leader for these sessions, Jef Lambdin, teaching artist extraordinaire. Jef, take it away.
Why, thank you, Kimberly, and I'd like to welcome everybody as well. Hello, webinarians far and near. We'd like to welcome you to the South Carolina Arts Commission's 8th Professional Development Workshop for Teaching Artists, and this one's titled, Where Can Teaching Artists Find Resources for Professional Development, Business Practices, Jobs, Events, and More? Now, I'm Jef Lambdin, and I'm a teaching artist, and I am your host for today. To begin, I'd like to introduce to you the other folks who will be joining in on all the fun. All right, they're going to share with you their knowledge and experience and expertise. And as I say your name, go ahead and raise your electronic hand so you come to the top of the queue so everybody knows who I'm talking about. All right, first, Kimberly Mott, the Arts Learning Director of the South Carolina Arts Commission. Good. And Hassan Anderson, Assistant Professor of Oboe and Coordinator of Teaching Artistry at the University of South Carolina School of Music. Welcome, Hassan. All right. Madeline McGurk, the Managing Director of the International Teaching Artists Collaborative. Madeline, welcome. There you go. And Katie Rainey, Co-Executive Director of the Teaching Artists Guild. Good to see you. And joining us in a little while, Kimberly Gibbs, the Director of Arts Education and Manager of Smart Arts for the Metropolitan Arts Council of Greenville, South Carolina. So we got loads of interesting people to help today, and I thank all of you for contributing. Now, today we're talking about how all of you as teaching artists can find resources that can help you with your teaching artistry. And that includes business, that includes art, and that includes education. We realize that some of you in our audience are beginning teaching artists, others of you are seasoned professionals, and we'll try to share information that all of you can use. We've designed today's event so that a panelist is introduced, and after each panelist, there'll be a short time for questions. Today, all of your questions can be typed into the chat. Everybody knows how to do that. Give me a thumbs up if you know how to, yeah, we're good. Or you can raise your electronic hand, and that'll put you to the top of the queue. All right? So, if we can go to the first slide, Miss Kimberly, thank you. All right. Please realize that this is a 3-year project, and we are in year 3 of the project, and this is our 8th webinar about the business of being a teaching artist. Our focus today will be on how all of you teaching artists can find resources that you need to help grow your teaching artistry. Let's go to the next slide. If you were with us over the last 2 years during webinars 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, you already know that we covered many topics considered to be the nuts and bolts of teaching artistry. The educational standards involving teaching in South Carolina schools, marketing your teaching artistry, assessing arts integrated lessons, incorporating social emotional learning into your work, and working with students who have special needs. If you missed any of the past webinars and you want to refresh yourself about these topics, all of these webinars that we share, including this one, will be available on the South Carolina Arts Commission's YouTube channel. Check out the link on this slide. Right there at the top. Good. All right. Because of the breadth and scope of today's topic, I will be joined by 5 experts in this portion of our teaching practice, and you will meet them again in a moment. As you know, we may not get to every question today during our brief hour-and-a-half session. If you have more questions, you can email me at woolly@mindspring.com. and I'll be happy to respond. You can get in touch with Kimberly at the Arts Commission. And at the end, I will post a screen of all of the organizations that our panelists come from. So if you'll, those are our panelists. a handsome lot. Okay. Okay, go back to, so let's stop sharing. And we're back live. All right. All right. To begin with, I'd like to introduce Hassan Anderson, who is, as I said before, the assistant professor of oboe and coordinator of teaching artistry at the University of South Carolina School of Music. Hassan, I hope you'll tell us a lot about the certificate program that you all offer, as well as giving us a little heads up about the Teaching Artist Forum that'll happen in September. Okay, so welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's so nice to be with all of you. Is my volume okay? Brilliant. That thumb agrees. So first of all, I want to say thank you to Jef and Kimberly for inviting me today. Today is super exciting because a lot of you might be thinking, teaching artistry at the University of South Carolina, what? So today, what I'm really here to do is kind of inform you about some of the interesting things that have been happening at our university. I just want to say that Katie and Madeline, I had no idea initially that you would be joining the call. I mean, you two are just so important to our field, and I have leaned on your websites, your information, as I work to develop what I'm going to say in a second it is now, which hopefully should be a good surprise to everyone. So with that said, I'm going to jump in and I will try to make sure I stay on schedule. All right, can everyone see this? Yay, great. So there were 2 or 3 fails before we started, but alas, the universe shall agree. So I'm Hassan Anderson, and today my agenda is that I'm going to share with you a couple of my what I call in briefs. These are the kind of big ideas that I have about teaching artistry. Let you know a little bit more about me. I don't need to, but I always try to define teaching artistry. A little bit of background about teaching artistry at USC, examine the language of the artist training track. I'm going to introduce you to some courses in teaching artistry at USC, and I'm going to introduce you to our new Bachelor of Music Performance degree with a concentration of teaching artistry. And so we're excited to announce that, and I'll say more about that in a second. And then we'll explore the how I and we can help and be a resource. So these 3 in briefs were really created for me as I was presenting to all the students in the School of Music big ideas about teaching artistry. The first presentation was about how teaching artists should really have a large toolbox of skills in order to make sure they continue to grow and make sure that they flourish. So this is one of the in briefs, and I'll just read a highlight of each. I said successful performing artists in the 21st century will be dynamic, forward-looking, and passionate. These artists will also be called upon to stretch themselves to prove and legitimize themselves to a society ambivalent about the classical arts. One of the reasons I start there is because I want students to understand that even while they may be attending a educational institution, a lot of people in our modern society really are ambivalent about education, and they have to know that because it helps them understand why it is so important that we be advocates for arts. In my second presentation, I asked our students to think about is access to music and art a human right? And in this second presentation, I really talked about how we've seen many trends in education show that we now have many different states where there are multi-thousand shortages in classroom teachers. For this discussion, I will call them certified classroom music teachers. And we had some examples where in a state, you could be a military veteran with a 2.5 GPA, and that was good enough to teach in a classroom because there was such a teaching shortage. So, you know, I wrote, at their best, teaching artists are bridges connecting those who want to enrich the souls of others in and through music. And then finally, in my presentation, I want to really kind of think about this idea of teaching not as doing something to someone, but the drawing out process. So, you know, teaching artists should not seek to teach art, but to help others make art. And I said, in order for such viewpoints to emerge, we must put art making at the center of our work, and we should see our roles as creating and protecting time and space for work in a medium as perhaps the most important thing we can do and offer as teaching artistry. Now, the reason I tend to speak this way is because I'm in a higher education setting where, for the most part, people don't know what a teaching artist is. There are professors, there are people who have doctorate degrees, there are students who come from high schools. And so part of my job has been introducing what we as a community do. That I've been called many things, but the best thing I've been called is a teaching artist. And so that's how I like to identify myself. And I've had many different jobs and interests as a teaching artist. I ran a music school program for a private school in New York City. I played oboe for many years and used the oboe to help my teaching artistry. This picture that you see with me dressed in this black. This is really special to me because this was part of the first time in a 175-year history of Carnegie Hall that an all-Black orchestra performed at Carnegie Hall. So that was a very special time. And of course, me with teaching my nursery 3 students, you know, the classic head, shoulders, knees, and toes. I always try to think of a teaching artist as someone who has done many different things. So this is a list of skills of things. So I've taught for nonprofits, I've taught nursery, I've worked in higher ed, I started community organizations, I've conducted choirs. And for me, this is not about what I've done, but it's about helping students and also teaching artist colleagues understand that they should think about their portfolio as large as possible, and also should always be thinking about how they can develop skills to, you know, really. And I know one thing I appreciate about Jef, he is so thoughtful about making sure that there's an art part, but the art part also informs the economic engine part. And so for me, I love Eric's definition. A teaching artist is a practicing artist who develops the complementary skills, curiosities, and habits of mind of an educator who can effectively engage a wide range of participants in learning experiences in and through and about arts. And again, I always come back to this definition because for me in a place like higher ed, I'm looking for music performance majors mostly, high-level music performance majors who have a passion for teaching and are able to provide educational enrichment in spaces which are both classrooms and maybe not classrooms. So teaching artistry at USC really comes out of the 2019 Yale Symposium on Music at the Yale School of Music. So at that symposium, the question was there a place for teaching artistry in higher ed? And that year, I was one of the recipients of the Yale Teaching Artist Award. And I sat in a room with people as vast as deans and presidents of our top music schools and conservatories, our top educational directors, people in policy. So it's quite intimidating. But I can tell you from that initial meeting, the consensus was that teaching artists is nice and there's a place for it, but there's no place in higher ed for teaching artistry. And so as you can imagine, I was startled that people would be so hostile to it, but that's where we started. However, one great thing about that meeting was that Dean Taylor Harding, my dean at the USC, was there listening. And he was one of the few people who felt that there could be a place in higher ed for teaching artistry. So for me, the language I have been using is what I call the artist training track in the music conservatory or school of music landscape. And that just says the goal of teaching artistry, as I see it, is to create an additional track, the artist training track. This track would address how we can adequately prepare and provide the tools for conservatory and school of music performance majors to successfully teach others one-to-one in a classroom setting or in a non-traditional learning space. One thing I love that Dean Harding calls this is he calls this bringing together the full promise. As most of you know, in most schools of music, either you're being trained to be a performance major or a music educator. But what about a third track where people who are music educators may not want to teach in schools and they can learn skills to use their engagement in other areas? And performance majors, we often think, well, of course they know how to teach because they go to weekly lessons. Well, we all know that's definitely not the case. So trying to be very clear about what is actually being learned and what is being perceived about what is being learned. So right now we offer two courses which I teach. The first is called Music MUSC, Music 5660, and that's an introduction of teaching artistry. And really what this does is try to introduce students to what we do, what we think, our beliefs. Of course, they're vastly different depending on where people are coming from, how long they've been in the practice. But also, one thing I love about this course is we talk a lot about aesthetics. It's amazing you can make your way all the way to college and people never ask you, well, who is an artist or what is art? Or what does it mean to teach? And so we spend a lot of time on that. But also we do not confront this tension between the idea of, well, a teacher in a classroom that is certified versus a teaching artistry. And I always say I've never been a teaching artist in a space where there was a choice to not have a certified music teacher. But what I would not do is support the fact that children or adults would not have access to music enrichment. The second class we have, which was just passed 2 weeks ago, is MUSC 561, Teaching Methods and Practicum for Teaching Artists. And what this really does is teach our teaching artists how to develop curriculum, scopes and sequences, lesson planning, and then examining higher level trends around classroom management, American teaching models that are not American-based, and really helping them kind of build their identity as a teaching teacher. So I'm happy to announce that what was supposed to start as a certificate in teaching artistry has now turned into a full Bachelor of Music performance with a concentration in teaching artistry. This will be the first in the nation offering of this type. This aims to promote teaching artistry in higher ed, and we're hoping this can be a model for universities and conservatories all over the country. 12 credits, 6 credits are required, and the other 6 pull from the many different features of our curriculum, whether it be entrepreneurship, business management, and many different facets of what we believe a 21st musician artist should be. This is right now being offered at the undergraduate level. That means that someone will spend 4 years, and as they study their instrument or voice, they will be also studying teaching artistry to have this certification on their degree. Coming soon is something I cannot talk about, but we are working very hard on a certificate. I can't say much about it, but the certificate in teaching artistry will be for those really focused on people who are embedded in communities to provide their communities with music teaching artistry or music instruction. So pastors, retired people who want to, or maybe professionals of another type, they'll be able to come to us either fall, summer, or spring, summer, and they will have, again, 12 credits of courses. And after this time, they will have a certificate in teaching artistry from the University of South Carolina. And we're working with a major donor who wants to inspiration has been that there has been no football, no bands at Friday night football games. That's one facet to it, but wants to really address music education in rural areas across the state. And so this certificate will be a way for people to have a credential from the University of South Carolina saying that they have taken classes at the collegiate level. So they might be in my 560 class with some of my students, making sure that they learn these skills. How can we be a resource? Information, knowledge. A lot of what I like to ask from you all is your input on, especially our leaders. What are the gaps? Me and Kim, we were planning the Teaching Artists Forum, which we'll say more about in a second. I knew I should create a slide, but I'm sure that'll be in your presentation, Kim, also, about what are the gaps in as we train teaching artists, what do we need to know so that we can send them out on day one, and while they're in work, in school, they can learn these skills. Rural school partnerships. We work very closely with organizations and rural communities, and they are constantly looking for teaching artists. Bringing teaching artists and pairing them with these partners, training, mentoring, professional development, whether it's me or working with your organization, your teaching artists, and just education, knowing that there is this is really big because, the first time that we're acknowledging, hey, teaching artistry is a real serious practice. And then a Teaching Artist Forum. So this year, our Teaching Artist Forum will be September 7th at the University of South Carolina. Kim, I'm sure will speak more about this. And our goal, and we've planned a phenomenal day. Glennis Redmond will be our keynote speaker, and you'll hear more information about that soon. But we're hoping to have, let's have every teaching artist in the whole state come. All 300 of them. We'll have a lot of planning if that happens. But that's our goal. And then finally, my goal is to be a resource. So my contact information is here, and I'll share this with anyone. And I'm sure my email is on Jeff's information too. And so I'll stop there, and I'll open the floor for any questions or comments.
Don't be shy.
Feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question.
Yes.
Everyone, my name is Angelo Jeter. I have a question. Thank you for that presentation.
Thank you.
So in terms of the classes, I know the certification isn't out there yet. You can't talk a whole lot about it. But if someone wanted to take the 561 class or the 560 class, is that something they could do outside of actually pursuing an undergraduate degree?
Well, what I would say is that what could probably happen is that I imagine we have a policy around auditing classes. Probably absolutely audit the class, take it for no credit, and be able to come and attend the class. The thing I would just invite anyone to come as a guest. I teach it every fall, Tuesday and Thursdays from 10 to 11:20, because I think you'd be really surprised how interested young people are. Let me just say one other detail. I have found that with teaching artistry, I found a lot of students feel that they don't have to choose between performance and education. They're like, oh gosh, this is really interesting to me. So absolutely, you can come as a guest, audit the class, or if you're really interested in the things that are being taught, I'm happy to share my syllabus or even meet on Zoom. One of the things that I really love about that class is we do debate some of the issues that come up that we know around teaching artistry. And so the kids are really enjoying it. And so we've had our first cohort, and I'm looking forward to teaching our second cohort in the fall.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll be here for the remainder of the call if any other questions come up. And so thank you all for your attention, and I will pass it back over to Jeff. Thank you, Jeff.
Well, thank you, Hassan. That was beautiful. I love it. I love it. And it's only the start. All right. We're going to move right along. As a moderator, I'm just moving things along here to Kimberly Mott, the Arts Learning Director of the South Carolina Arts Commission. I'd like to, Kimberly Gibbs, can you raise your electronic hand since you joined us now? You know how to do that? Kimberly Gibbs.
Yes, I do not.
Okay.
I can raise my real hand, but electronic, I'm not sure. I see that on my little thing here. But hello, everyone.
Hello and welcome. And welcome. So, but don't get confused with the Kimberlys, because I'm introducing the Kimberly Mott unit, and she's the Arts Learning Director of the South Carolina Arts Commission. And Kimberly, please tell us all of the programs. I mean, you only have 10 to 15 minutes, but all of the programs at the Arts Commission that involve teaching artists.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jeff. Let me get my screen share happening here. Hopefully you can all see this. Welcome everyone. Kimberly Washburn Mott again. Glad that you're here today. I am going to share some resources for teaching artists, but also put the disclaimer out there that this is not, these are some of the resources, but maybe not every resource that the Arts Commission offers. So I just want to make sure that you all have a sense of what the Arts Commission is, what we do, and how we can support you in your teaching artistry career and as your individual artist, as an individual artist as well. So first of all, before I go into the details on this slide, I first want to tell you that the South Carolina Arts Commission is your state arts agency. We are funded through public dollars that are appropriated from the General Assembly. So we are a government agency and we are funded through your taxpayer dollars. So we are charged with serving every South Carolinian. All 46 counties in South Carolina are priorities for us. We're not just focusing on artists in large cities. So please make sure that you engage with us. If you have questions about the Arts Commission, or you would like more information about anything that I talk about, or how you can take advantage of these resources, please reach out to us, because we're always here to help. So one of the most important things that we offer for teaching artists and artists at the South Carolina Arts Commission is the South Carolina Arts Directory. So the Arts Directory is a listing of artists that have been vetted and verified. They have been vetted for quality, first as an artist. So as an artist, your work is vetted. If you're accepted onto the directory, you can also go and get an additional level of verification as a teaching artist, in which we take a look at things like sample lessons, a video of your lesson, and that just helps us understand what your capacity is to work in the classroom. The advantage of being on the South Carolina Arts Directory is that the directory is a public listing of artists. So when someone calls the Arts Commission and they say, we're looking for a muralist, or we're looking for a theater teaching artist, what we're going to do is send them directly to the South Carolina Arts Directory. We're going to tell them, take a look at the directory. These are artists that we recommend. So these are always where we send people that are looking to hire artists. Secondly, the Arts Directory is beneficial to you as a teaching artist, because only artists and teaching artists on the directory are eligible to be hired in schools that are using South Carolina Arts Commission funding, which means that if a school has a grant to bring in a teaching artist, they have to use someone from the directory. So there's a couple of different advantages to being on the directory. It is an application process, and you can find out more about that on our website. I'm going to direct us there in just a minute. When you get to the Arts Commission's website, you'll see the Arts Directory, you'll see welcome information, more information about the directory, and then this is a searchable directory. So you can search by discipline, you can search by location, you can search by name, and if you have questions about the directory, our new arts learning coordinator, Michaela Moore, who is in the house here tonight, is your contact for the Arts Directory. So she'll be more than happy to help you. I just want to show you, and I use Jef because he was an easy target here as our moderator. Once you're on the directory, you will be given a identifying card that's on our website. So I'm going to just click on this. Hopefully it will take us to the website and you will be able to see it. I'm really hoping that this is going to follow us. It's not, of course. Hold on, I'm going to switch my screen share so you can see what I'm sharing. I switched to a wonderful website, but now the screen share isn't following me there. So just give me 1 second. New share here. Okay. So now I'm sharing what is hopefully our website. Great. So you go to the directory. This is what I just showed you. This is where it's searchable. So you can search by discipline, by location if you're looking for an artist. Since I was using Jef, I'm going to search by his last name here. And here we have his, what we call the card. So this is just the very short bits of information about Jef. But if I click on learn more, every artist and teaching artist on the Arts Directory gets a web page. And so the SCAD designations, so Jef is a verified teaching artist, his contact information, his arts discipline, where he's available to work, information about the artist, an artist statement, information about the things that he provides as a teaching artist, so the types of offerings that he provides, things that schools or things that he'll provide to schools or organizations, and things that he requires of a school or organization. So this just really helps communicate your offerings as a teaching artist to schools, to organizations who may want to hire you. What we hope this does is help set the tone for building relationships between organizations, schools, and teaching artists. So if you are accepted onto the directory and as a teaching artist, this is the information that's posted on our website. So I just want to make sure that you were able to see that. I'm going to switch back to my PowerPoint now. The best laid plans with all these links I put in here. We're just going to roll with it. Okay, so we also offering, so the directory is a huge thing that is a big part of what we do at the Arts Commission. It's a big part of ways that we tell teaching artists to engage with the commission. Another thing that we work really hard at is providing professional learning for teaching artists. So one example of that is this webinar series. We've been working through this webinar series on ArtsGrowSC webinar series, being a teaching artist. And I'll provide this slideshow to everyone. And these are clickable links. So you can click a link to the YouTube playlist that will show you all the videos that we've had in the past. If I click on it, I'll have to do the crazy reshare thing. So I'm just going to bypass that, but that's going to be a link for you. And then another really important resource is ArtsGrowSC. Now I am going to click on this because it's important. Doesn't want to open it. I'll just share it from over here. Thank you for your patience with my screen sharing. I broke the screen sharing. I'll fix it. 1 second. I am an experienced screen sharer, but today it's not my friend. Okay. All right. So ArtsGrowSC is a collective impact initiative of the South Carolina Arts Commission. ArtsGrowSC is a network of artists all over the state. So I want to show you where you might be able to connect with some resources that are beneficial to you on the ArtsGrow website. The website is artsgrowsc.org. You can come to the Learn More tab and click on For Teaching Artists, and that will take you to an area of our website that is, all the information here is aimed directly at teaching artists. So the Arts Project Support Grant is a grant that we have for artists specifically. And so this is a grant that as an artist you could apply for. We also have information about the Teaching Artist Forum. The date is wrong because we switched it to September, but that's information and information about how you can register there. We also have more information about our webinar series with Jef. So lots of different resources that are available to you as a teaching artist on the ArtsGrowSC website. We also have our network of partners. You can learn more about this collective impact initiative through learning who our partners are. We have lots of partners that are working in communities with teaching artists. So if you're interested in working as a community-based teaching artist, you can find information about people like the ABC Institute, Palmetto State Art Education, the Governor's School for the Arts and Humanities, Engaging Creative Minds, Boys and Girls Club. All of these organizations are using and working with teaching artists. So just another point of engagement for you as a teaching artist. Okay, I'm going to switch back to my PowerPoint now. And I'm behind, there we go. And so one of the other professional learning things that we are working in partnership with USC School of Music, I know you heard Hassan mention the Teaching Artist Forum. Saturday, September 7th, 2024, we will be hosting in partnership with USC School of Music, the Teaching Artist Forum. The focus on this year's forum is embracing change and best practices in teaching artistry. We're hoping that this will be a really inspirational day of art making, professional learning, and networking with fellow teaching artists. Our keynote speaker, Glennis Redman, is a poet, a Kennedy Center teaching artist, and an imagination activist. I just love that title. I think I'm going to start calling myself an imagination activist. But I cannot tell you how excited and honored we are to have Glennis Redmond with us. She is a phenomenal speaker, and I know that you will definitely benefit from being able to hear from her. So if you have questions about offerings from the South Carolina Arts Commission, you can always contact me at kmott@arts.sc.gov. Again, there are so many different ways that the Arts Commission can connect with you. As an artist, we do have grants available. We do not have grants directly to teaching artists. We typically will grant to schools who will then use that funding to hire teaching artists. So depending on what angle you're looking for funding, whether it's your own artistry or your teaching artistry, we can always help advise you there. So if you have questions, we're here to help. And I just want to thank you, Jef, for giving me a few moments to speak and share. And please remember, reach out if we can help you at the Arts Commission.
We're glad to have you, Kimberly. Excellent. Thanks for all that information. Does anybody have any questions of Kimberly while she's here and live? Brian, you're waving your hand.
I'm just kind of curious because I'm a Georgia resident and I'm on the directory for a couple of decades now, and I'm just having a wonderful time, particularly this year, doing new things with my presentation, also working in South Carolina. I guess I'm forming my question as I speak, but the Georgia Council for the Arts is trying to get its act together, even as a subsidiary agency of the Georgia Department of Tourism and Economic Development. For instance, we have an artist talk coming up in about a month where we're actually going to have Eric Booth join us, which is quite an honor. But I think he also understands that Georgia is the 49th, or we're the last in the country when it comes to state arts funding. So kudos to South Carolina. I love working in South Carolina. I really appreciate the Arts Commission and the many, many years of infrastructure, human infrastructure that has gone into this project. I would like to have an idea, Kimberly, involved if I'm a teacher and I want to hire somebody on the roster to come and do some assemblies or a 3-day residency and stuff. How easy is it for me to do? And I think it's really going to be more of a quick rhetorical answer from you, because I know that the funding products in Georgia are very complicated. We really don't have a good network in our state to work with teachers and to say, hey, you can apply for this or that kind of grant. Can you talk about how easy it is for teachers to hire artists through a grant with the Arts Commission?
Yes, I would love to talk about that. So the grant that most typically is used for that is a grant called the School Art Support Grant. It's a grant that's offered on a rolling basis. We typically open it in July and we close the grant March 5th this year, I think. So our last deadline is coming right up. The way that grant works is a teacher can apply at any time to receive up to $2,500 of funding to bring in a teaching artist to work with her students, his or her students. And those funds go directly to the school district, and then the school district issues the funds directly to the teaching artist that's being hired. So some of the complexity is in that sort of, it depends on how hard your district wants to make it, really. But also, what we have tried to do with the School Art Support Grant is make it one of the lowest lift grants that we have available. And what I mean by that is the application is short. It's not a long application. It also doesn't require a ton of documentation. A teacher should be able to sit down and fill out a school art support in under 90 minutes. And it should be something that they can do without a lot of, they don't need a lot of outside assistance to complete that grant. What we've really tried to do with the School Art Support Grant is make it accessible to teachers, because anyone who knows about teaching right now teachers are in over their heads. They don't have extra time for extra things. So we've tried to make this grant application as simple as possible. We're only asking what we really need to know. And we try to make it easy. And I also will say that the Arts Commission is always here to support teachers in grant writing. So we have external panels evaluate our grants so that our staff can be of assistance to teachers in writing those grants. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, no, thank you. I really enjoyed hearing that. It's almost like I feel like I'm a spy and I can go back to the Georgia Council and tell them, hey, look, But, you know, we're working on it. There's some legislation to try and make some donations so people can actually take their tax discounts and put it towards the Georgia Council for the Arts, and maybe someday we'll be somewhere like South Carolina is. Can you quickly talk about ABC, Arts in the Basic? And does that exist anymore? Is that another kind of a grant that teachers might use?
So Arts and Basic Curriculum Institute is a separate organization. They are funded by the Arts Commission. They're a close partner of the Arts Commission. They do still exist. It's abcinstitute.org, I think, if you go to their website, or just Google ABC Institute. They work primarily with networks of schools that have been certified as arts-rich schools around South Carolina. Right now, I think there's around 65 ABC schools in South Carolina. So it's a pretty decent sized network. And they all of those schools are focusing on making their schools an art-rich environment. They do have grant funding. Each school receives grant funding from the South Carolina Arts Commission to fund their strategic plan, and they are able to hire teaching artists to work in their schools with those grant funds. So I always recommend that teaching artists engage with ABC. Look on ABC's website. You can see a listing of their schools, and that's a great place to go to. If you're just starting out engaging with schools in South Carolina, reaching out to ABC schools is a great place to start.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
If I can add a little something, Kimberly.
Please.
From an artist point of view, the data that the ABC schools provides is easily used by an artist to appeal to all 65 or 68 schools. And I recommend that you do it at this time of year, because now is when they are planning their next year. So if you contact this ABC schools now, they can write you into the grant, if I may say, we want Brian Engel, and he's like that. But that, if you're looking for a timeline, now's the time to get in touch with them.
And I've dropped in the chat both the link to the School Art Support Grant Guidelines for those of you who may just be interested in looking at what a teacher might fill out to bring you in as a teaching artist. And I've also included the link in the chat to the ABC Institute.
Super. Does that help, Brian? Give me a thumbs up. Okay. Good. Well, thank you, Kimberly.
Yes,
Yay.
thank y'all.
All right. And now we're going to get an international perspective. You may not know it, Madeline McGurk is in Scotland right now. And so it's about almost 10 o'clock your time, and we thank you for joining us, Madeline. And Madeline is the executive director of the International Teaching Artists Collaborative. So Madeline, tell us, what do you offer teaching artists on an international collaborative level?
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm Madeline. It's really nice to be here with you all, learning about the work that's going on where you are. So thank you for having me. I'm going to screen share here, but I'm not actually going to fill the slides to the full screen because I want to switch between tabs and show you some of the resources that we have going on. Can I just, I'm going to put you in my gallery view so I can see you. Can you just give me like a thumbs up or a wave if you know what ITAC is, if you've heard of it, if you receive any information from us? Okay, so half, maybe less, some cameras are off. Okay, so I'll talk you through the basics of what it is, but I'll not spend too much time on that, and I'll cut ahead to some of the resources that we have for teaching artists too. So ITAC or ITAC, depending on which part of the world you're in, is the International Teaching Artists Collaborative, and we are a network of roughly 5,000 teaching artists from 45 plus countries. We have 5 national hubs across the world in New Zealand, Norway, South Korea, the USA, and very recently England. And our USA hub is co-led by TAG with Katie on this call. So we run year-round projects for teaching artists, and that includes our 3 strategic areas, which are professional development, network development, and advocacy. These include some projects I'll talk to you a little bit about in a minute. but very generally speaking, we meet at least monthly for webinar think tanks kind of like this. They're hosted by someone in a different part of the world each month on a different topic that is relevant and emerging in the teaching artistry sector where they are. So we just had one on civic engagement and democracy led by some colleagues in the US. And next month we have one led by one of our commissioned climate artists in the Philippines who deals with youth teaching artist leadership in the climate space. If you subscribe to our newsletter, you'll get invitations to all of that stuff regularly, so I won't go on about it too much. And if you don't subscribe to our newsletter, I'll share all of those links later too. The other big thing we have coming up is our next conference, which will happen in September in New Zealand. These happen every 2 years in a different part of the world. Last was in Norway 2 years ago, which I don't know how time has flown, but it has. And 2 years before that was supposed to be Korea, but it moved online. But we were lucky enough to welcome about 2,000 folks online. So I think it was that moment in the lockdown where everyone was just hungry for other people doing things that they care about too. So the ATAC vision is a world in which every country has artists working in the heart of communities and learning, where these artists are continually improving, internationally connected and well supported, and the potential of the practice and its transformative power is visible and valued. Some of our key projects, although for those of you who are familiar with us, will know there are just tons. When you deal internationally with people who are as passionate as teaching artists are, things pop up in pockets all over the place, and we certainly don't try and halt them. But some real flagship programs include ATAC Impact Climate, which was our flagship project. It's ongoing still, where we commission teaching artists in different parts of the world to be the key change makers in their community in relation to climate crises that are happening on the ground for them. So as an example, a colleague in the US who's commissioned at the moment is working in Napakiak, Alaska, which is the first community that's had to relocate because of rising tides. And she's working with elders and young people in her community with drone footage to kind of make memory maps of what was there and what is there now, and using that as an advocacy tool to try and get some support for the community and make visible what's going on there. So that's one example of a climate commissioned project. We have about 5 a year. And next month's think tank that I mentioned in the Philippines is led by one of those commissioned artists. So if you have time, I would encourage you to join us for that one. Eden Engagement, Katie, who's on the call, has been an integral part of this, is a flagship project that we ran with Joyce DiDonato, who's an opera singer who tours really widely and has a big passion for social impact. And so we were brought in to design the social impact strand of her tour. So what we did was we commissioned a teaching artist in every tour city that she stopped in and worked with them to design curriculum that would build community impact pre-tour to young choirs in the area who would then attend the concert, sing with Joyce on stage and spread the message. There were almost 2,000 students engaged in that first 3 rounds of the tour, that first leg. And we have about 63 different teaching artist curricula that we've developed that I'll show you towards the end. They're all free, they're all downloadable. Most are in English, although there are multiple languages on offer, depending on where the tour happened. And it's just a really great resource, and we hope can be the beginning of touring fine arts models embedding community impact into their approaches. So the goal with all of these projects is start small, prove the case, prove the impact of teaching artist practice, and then scale and replicate. And so that's very much the goal with all of these. The monthly think tanks I mentioned, the ATAC innovators. Again, every year we commission about 5, 6 people from our network, teaching artists, to point out where they notice gaps in their community resources in terms of what toolkits would you have loved to have when you started that you didn't have, what knowledge have you learned that you don't see shared very widely, And then we ask them to work with groups from our network, working groups, to develop those toolkits and those guides. And again, I'll show you some examples of the resources of that coming up now. The Young and Emerging Leaders Forum, it hasn't produced any big resources yet, but it's a passion project of mine, and so I want to share about it a little bit. I think we probably all know that teaching artistry tends to be a sector historically that you find your way into based on passion, based on noticing what works and honing your skills. And then you kind of find there's a community, maybe less so in the US because there's more of a structure around the sector. Here in Scotland, there's more of a sector too, but most countries, that's not the case yet. And so the Young and Emerging Leaders Forum is something I co-designed with Creative Generation to provide pathways, mentorship, and community building for early stage teaching artists who are either young or emerging into the sector, who want to take a leadership role but have no idea where to start or don't know the people in the room to talk to. And it's really a forum to dig deep into that. They meet monthly. There are 2 cohorts that meet 12 hours apart because some have different time zones. But it meets monthly, runs for, I think, a 10-month period, and then at the end culminates in some kind of collective resource legacy decision. So some of the projects that I'll talk to you about, because I know we're here to talk about resources and what is available to you. So one of our big ones that we very recently published, and I'm just super proud of, is our new impact and assessment guide for teaching artistry. This is, I'm going to flick between tabs here. So let me see. Yes. So our website is in the process of having a redesign. It's a little chaotic at the moment, but if you find your way to the page, this is it. And you'll see that the guide exists in 3 parts. There is pre-project planning, mid-project delivery, and post-project reflection. So this is a guide designed entirely for teaching artists with social impact in mind. So we ask you to do things like stakeholder mapping, logic models, reflections, surveys, and put a guide towards how you might want to document, how you might want to observe, what kind of notes you might want to take. And we ask you to think about the audiences that you want to prove your case to. So is this for yourself? Is this for professional development and reflection? Is it a journal? Or is it for funders who need percentages and statistics? Or is it for something else? And then we kind of take you through that process of, depending on who this is for, how might you build your project and how might you design it? And really embedding that thinking before you begin. So if you have to measure baselines to know at the end how you've done, that's in the planning from the beginning. So I'm going to take you through, this is a strategy model that we use. And I think often people see this and they go, oh God, no. But actually, I have it on good authority from people who've used this regularly, that it is just an incredibly helpful way of asking us to think slightly differently about the work. I think we know intuitively you lay great plans and then you get in the room and they all change. But I think what this asks us to do is say, what are the staples that we need to keep to prove the point we're trying to make or to get to that end goal, however loose or subjective it may be. So I'm going to put the link in the chat to where you can find that impact and assessment guide, but I would encourage you to have a look in your own time and see if it's something that could be of value. For the seasoned among you, you may well have your own practices, and that's great. We don't pretend everyone needs to use this, but if it's a helpful tool, I hope that it can provide some help and some new ways of thinking. Similarly, we have launched as of a year and a half ago, we launched our first free online course called Teaching Artistry for Social Impact. This was developed over about 2 years with some of our closest colleagues. Some of you mentioned Eric Booth earlier. He's the key co-author in this and our co-founder as well, as probably most of you know. Gaurie Savour from our team, she was also a really leading person in this. So this draws on basically the wisdom of our network. It is not purely an academic course. It is mostly based on practice experience from within our network, What have people found works, and how would they suggest you move through the plan? Again, this encourages us to look at logic models, assessing impact, assumption mapping, things like that, where it asks us to talk differently about what we plan to do, to get beyond the jargon and move into the real substance of what are we talking about, what do we hope will happen, and how will we know if it's successful. The course is something like 40 hours, it's asynchronous and it is demanding, but once you finish, you let us know, you send some course coaches your final document, and you're matched with a mentor, a real life person who can talk you through what you've done, give you some feedback, and sort of reflect with you on the process and how you found the outcomes. Now, I know I'm running out of time, so I'll go very quickly now, but you'll see that I'm going quick. We recently are launching a new resource table, and there are 329. So these are like the 4 that I really wanted to show. This is a toolkit for nonverbal teaching artistry. So for anyone working in non-language settings or anything where language is not your primary way of communicating, there is a toolkit that one of our innovators, Becky Baumwall, has produced. And it takes you through what assumptions you might make, how you might navigate different activities, what could you pilot in the classroom, and how might you respond to different things that might come up. Similarly, we have an innovative resource on action research for teaching artists. This was developed by Jose Angel as sponsored by the Academy for Impact Through Music. And it's a teaching artist guide for action research in the classroom. And what it does is, obviously, action research is a spectrum, and you can go very academic or very anecdotal. This lives on the informal side of that. But the goal is to help us develop how we're approaching topics, how we're responding when things go badly, and how we're using that in a research capacity to constantly improve our practice. On a side note, the visual design is also just off the charts of this one. So you'll see, it looks like a comic book, so it's also quite nice to navigate through. And finally, we have our Eden engagement curricula. There are 63 of these. They all exist in different languages. They are all free teaching artist workshops. Katie on the call was just pretty much the leading force in making these happen. But you can see as an example here, 90-minute workshop. Here's what you'll need. Here's what you'll make. Here's how you might facilitate this. Take it and run with it. There are 63 of these, so please do feel free to browse. They are all available and open to you. And I think the goal is they will be used by as many people as possible in as many communities as possible. Okay, I think I'm on to, okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now I have about 40 years of work to explore on the iTech Collaborative website. That's great. It's great. Who has
Yeah.
questions for Madeline? Carol?
How many countries are involved?
Oh, but the last count, it was about 45, but that was before our last conference. So I have a hunch we're in the 50s these days, but we are about to move to a new website and a new membership management system, which will help us do a lot more in-depth demographic mapping, and that will help us really understand if it's actually a bit more, because I have a hunch that it is.
And Carol, as somebody who's attended one of the collaboration conferences, I'm sitting in a workshop, and the gentleman beside me is from Zimbabwe, and the woman on the other side is from Denmark. And we're all learning at a session together. That is indescribable what comes out of the discussions from all the points of view.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's an open call just now for anyone who wants to propose a session for New Zealand if you want to join us for the next one.
Yeah.
Any others?
Well, Madeline, I just want to say it's incredible. It's incredible. I think we're all
Yeah.
slightly blown away by completely. Uh, I I'm just that the open call you just mentioned, is that something you apply through at the website or?
Yes, let me drop that in the chat right now. So the ITAC, the team organising the New Zealand conference are at the Centre for Arts and Social Transformation in New Zealand, and they are leading that process. So they do have their own specific portal for the conference, which I've just put in the chat there. It's ITAC 7 because it's our 7th international gathering.
Fantastic. And it's very clear that you all are so far ahead. Looking ahead, what are some of the goals of the organization? Because it seems like, wow, you could just go and lay down for the rest of the week because you all are so, so ahead. But looking forward, what are some of your ambitions or goals for the organization?
But I need to come to this space more often. It doesn't always feel like we're very far ahead. Well, the big goal right now is, well, it's twofold. One is to really formalize what it means to be a member and how that operates and how people can communicate with each other. When we started, it was a few hundred people, and now obviously it's grown significantly. So the website, the systems, all of those need updated more for growth. So that's one thing that's coming in the next few months. But a bigger picture thing for me is that I now have the privilege to be in spaces where teaching artists aren't usually. So I was at the World Health Organization in October, and I was at UNESCO last week, and none of those are talking about teaching artistry, but they're all talking about the outcomes that teaching artists create. And so that's the space where work needs done. So my big focus now in terms of advocacy is pointing that out. It's just really obnoxiously pointing that out in every space I can possibly show up in with that has scope to create systems change and to employ teaching artists, and they just don't know they need us yet. And so that's a big mission for the next 18 months. Building new spaces where we can operate that understand why we're there and are equipped to know how to use us when we arrive.
Super. Any other questions for Madeline? Well, let's move on. Now, you just got an international perspective, and I want you to know that one of the most important perspectives also, as well as the international, is the local perspective. So we've invited Kimberly Gibbs from the Metropolitan Arts Council of Greenville, South Carolina. She is the Director of Arts Education and the coordinator of the Smart Arts program. And knowing that the Smart Arts program involves lots of teaching artists, Kimberly, I hope you'll let us know about that and other things that your local agency is doing for your local teaching artists.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you for inviting us, Jef. And Madeline, that was just phenomenal. It's so great. Like, I'm on this local level, so it's been great to see the international and, of course, the state level with our other presenters. And, of course, thank you to the South Carolina Arts Commission, who is a big supporter of the Metropolitan Arts Council. But we are the biggest arts council in the state of South Carolina. And I'm just the director of the arts education piece of that, which is what we call our Smart Arts program. But I am going to mention at the end of my presentation just some resources that we have outside of this kind of teaching artist space. Smart Arts is a program that began in 2003 with 3 federal grants and 1 high poverty middle school. And now we are in 42 schools in Greenville County. Last year, we worked with 171 teachers in Greenville County and trained about 85 teachers. But our program focus is arts integration. And one thing that's exciting for me is I started as a teaching artist in 2003 in arts integration, actually with the Smart Arts program. And it's so amazing to me how much arts integration has really spread, and also not only spread, but there's so much research now showing how effective arts integration is, especially with like overcoming COVID learning loss. And thank you again to the South Carolina Arts Commission, because they really did a great study showing the impact of arts integration, arts-rich schools in the state of South Carolina. And it's really, I think, amazing what teaching artists can do for our students and our communities. Arts integration is, many of you I'm sure know, just an approach to teaching in which students construct and demonstrate understanding through an art form. Students engage in a creative process which connects an art form and another subject area and meets evolving objectives in both. So basically, we're trying to basically partner with that academic teacher and help her to teach her curriculum through using the arts, but also have the kids learn about the arts at the same time. In this little, and I hope that y'all can see my slideshow. I think you can. In this picture, we have these kids were studying colonial America. So we had a basket weaver and broom making artist came in, and the students were able to all make their own brooms and kind of get a feeling for that pre-technology era. I don't have that much time, so I'm not going to show some of the videos in this, but Dove Dupree, who's in our meeting today, did this great little unit over at a high poverty elementary school where the kids wrote raps about the science they were studying. But it is just a great example of arts integration and taking an art form like rap or spoken word, and you can really use it to teach science, which is just amazing. But this presentation is on our blog, which I've shared in the chat, so that if you want to go back and watch any of these videos, you are more than welcome to do so. But basically, as I mentioned, Smart Arts is a program in Greenville, South Carolina, where we're basically pairing teachers and artists together. These are just some examples of some work on this slide. Here's some ugly jugs that a pottery artist did in English class, where they were studying character development, and the students basically created these characters that expressed emotions and actually wrote a little line of poetry that went onto the pottery, bringing together that language arts standard with the pottery standard. Here's a little picture of some collages they did in a 6th grade social studies classroom, where they were basically representing different ancient cultures. I think this one was Mesopotamia. And then we do a lot of murals. It can be a theme that the kids are studying, but it can also be very community building when they do the murals. I will show this little video, also produced by Dove Dupree, who's in this meeting. And I think this video does give a nice little just kind of overview of our program, and it's only about a minute long.
Smart Arts, housed at the TD Center for Arts Integration, is the Metropolitan Arts Council's successful arts education initiative that helps local artists make a living as artists through their work in Greenville County schools, offering artist residencies in science, math, history, and language arts classrooms at no cost to the schools. Smart Arts, to me, is simply a way for the artist and the teacher to be able to collaborate and help the students learn in a different way. The mission of the TD Center for Arts Integration is to improve academic achievement for Greenville County students through arts-rich experiences and dialogue, connecting students, teachers, and artists to deeper learning and self-awareness.
So a teaching artist will be paired with an academic teacher, and they'll work together to teach an academic subject. The teaching artist using their art form, whether it be drama or creative writing, movement. I really enjoy because through the creating and planning, it not only helped me to develop myself as a teaching artist, but also sharing my skill to share different type of creation with the student.
Learn more about Smart Arts and MAC at www.greenvillearts.com or follow us on social media at Smart Arts GBL. Smart Arts.
So I think that just gives a quick little overview. And of course, Cecilia Ho is here in the chat with us, who's a wonderful felting artist. And it's so amazing because I think people sometimes when they are new to being a teaching artist don't really make all the connections of how their art can connect to so many different subjects. like with Cecilia, just the concept of wool and how that connects to the Industrial Revolution and all the different way wool affects different cultures and social studies, to what you can just represent with wool, like whether you're studying bridges. So one of the things that I get really excited about with the program is just seeing how creative our South Carolina teaching artists are in bringing their art form into that teacher's curriculum and tailoring what they do to really help that teacher take that kid that's, spacing out and has their head down the back of the classroom and kind of re-engage them and bring that student to life. And then even after that teaching artist is gone, that student has re-engaged with curriculum and continues to maintain some of that excitement after that teaching artist has left. And so I really have a great job because I get to go into the classrooms of our 22 different teaching artists and observe the great work that they're doing, which has been great. I really enjoy getting to just interact with our teaching artists a lot and mentor them and just to be on site if something's going wrong in a classroom, we can have a little huddle and kind of fix the problem, not that there's really problems, but if anything comes up, there's a lot of support for the teaching artists that we work with. I'm not going to spend too much time going too deep into the program, but it is a 5-day residency typically. And what happens is our teaching artists, they come and they do a training with us in the summertime. We do actually do a training specifically for our teaching artists. So they actually receive about 12 hours of professional development every year. I usually bring a different speaker in to work with them. And then they also spend some time planning with the teachers that they're going to be working with that upcoming summer. So we'll have about 85 teachers at our training this summer, and each one of them will be paired with one of our teaching artists. And right then in July, they'll schedule out those units and make a plan for the upcoming school year, which I think really helps see teaching artists because then they know when to schedule their other units the rest of the school year. One thing that I do really recommend for teaching artists, and I know some of y'all have tons of experience and some of you may be newer, is that I do really recommend for teaching artists to have 2 master lessons and to really work on, when you're at school. I was a school teacher for 10 years, and when I teach something, I teach it every year. And usually like the 3rd year, I start getting really good at it. But as a teaching artist, you're kind of showing up in a classroom and you're teaching these kids, and then you never see them again after those 5 days. And so in some ways, you're able to create this master lesson because you get to teach it over and over again. But it can be a little bit difficult at the beginning because unfortunately, the only way to become a great teacher is just to keep teaching the same lesson over and over again. So I definitely suggest that artists try and pick their 2 top things and use those lessons as much as they can to perfect them rather than trying something new every time you go to a classroom. You don't want to be like experimenting on the kids or anything. So that's just a little bit of probably like unsolicited advice about just being a teaching artist in general. So just wanted to give a quick few examples of units our artists have done just very quickly, just to give you some ideas of arts integration, if it's not something you do a lot. Jeff Holland, who I call the Mr. Rogers of teaching artists, he's so fabulous. He does a really great job of using drums to actually teach like counting, number sense, and fractions. And then also a lot of soft skills. Some of our kids since COVID are missing soft skills that our teaching artists are so equipped to teach those soft skills. Things just like following instructions, call and response. And so one of the things to really think about is what are the soft skills you teach along with your curriculum. We have a couple of muralists. And it can always be great because the kids actually get to paint these murals themselves. I mean, it's always beautiful when you go into a school and they've hired this artist and they come and they paint this mural. But it's really powerful when kids get to paint a mural themselves and then they can be like, look, I painted that butterfly right there. And it really makes them feel very connected to the community that they live in. So we really are very grateful for the muralists that we work with. So just very quickly, teachers are able to self-select into our program. So basically we get a lot of new teachers every year because, as we know, teachers are coming and going at a rapid speed from the teaching industry. So we do train about 25 new teachers every year, and then we have about 65 teachers that return that we've worked with in the past. We have some teachers that I was actually been working with the same teacher since like 2015. I realized this year I was doing this poetry slam unit. I was like, wow, I've been coming to this school and doing this poetry slam unit since 2015. So it is really great when you can have a really powerful unit with the kids and get to keep doing it, basically. And basically teachers sign up before April 30th. And then once they do that, their school pays $25 just so they have a little skin in the game, as I like to say. But then after that, the Metropolitan Arts Council does all the fundraising to pay for all of the residencies. So one of the hats I wear is doing some grant writing. And of course, I have the phenomenal Alan Etheridge, who's just an amazing he's an amazing fundraiser. And he's able to raise the funds every year to make this 100% free to public schools, basically. And so this summer we'll be at the Fine Arts Center July 15th for our training. We do only work with teachers, teaching artists, and teachers that live in Greenville County, basically because we're trying to make Greenville such a great place that none of our artists will want to leave, and we want to keep them, and we don't want them to move somewhere else. That's what our kind of goal is. And so we kind of believe in Greenville that if our artists can find plenty of work between being a teaching artist and doing their work as an artist, and we will be able to keep them. And we do have, like I mentioned, I'm the director of the program now, but I actually was a teaching artist in 2003 with Smart Arts. And we do have some teaching artists that have been with us since the very beginning. I did want to mention a few resources on our blog, which is down here. I do have just like some general, links to lessons that you can kind of like go and look at with different online art companies and stuff if you're looking for some lesson ideas. And we do kind of this Padlet for all of our training where we just put links to different resources. So feel free to kind of hunt around on our blog. Like if you're kind of confused about how to make a lesson plan, there's a lesson plan template. You're welcome to take it and take our headings off and use that yourself. I don't mind that at all. And then you're welcome to follow us on Instagram where we post, some pictures and social media stuff. I don't know who is in Greenville here with the Arts Council, but definitely reach out to your own Arts Council. Because, for example, we have a member directory where any artist can sign up for free, and we make a page, kind of like the Arts Commission's one, to list what you do. So your local Arts Commission may also have some sort of artist directory. So I would definitely check that out. We also do like some local art contests. We have a 24-hour art contest called Flat Out Under Pressure. And I think the great thing about Flat Out Under Pressure, other than the fact that the winning artist wins a trip to Italy and that the top 8 people get their art on the things downtown, is that you actually get your art displayed in the Arts Council office. So I always suggest to people, find out like what's going on at your Arts Council, and there may be ways that you can be exhibited and get involved that you hadn't thought of before. And we do give out project grants for artists. You can go to greenvillearts.com and just go under grants and artists and get information. You can apply for matching grants, or if you work with a nonprofit, nonprofits can apply for project grants as well. We also have a new award for emerging artists that live in Greenville County. And this, as I said, this presentation is on the Smart Arts blog if you would like to go into more detail, but I know that we are getting short on time. So I don't want to spend too much on the Greenville stuff. But if you do go onto our blog, if you go under Institute, Let me see a little share. Let me stop sharing and reshare. Before I kind of continue, is there anyone specific that y'all would like me to talk about for just another 3 or 4 minutes, or questions? Because I know a lot of this stuff is very Greenville focused. But I'd be happy to, kind of refocus if people have other things they're interested in. This is the blog here. And if you click on this Institute button, we do have this little Padlet where I do post like little links to different places you can get free arts integration lessons and stuff like that. But does anyone have any questions for me specifically?
Carol? I don't know. Carol,
Can't think
unmuted.
of any.
Well, Kimberly, I just have a quick question, and
Okay.
the answer may be too lengthy. How do we, with our local arts councils, encourage them to be as supportive of our teaching artists as you are of yours?
I think that, there's definitely like a big spectrum as far as what different arts councils are offering. And there's also, not every city has an arts council. So sometimes you may have to look, sometimes like, for example, in Columbia, they don't technically have an arts council. They have one Columbia that's a cultural organization. Like in Charleston, you really have to talk to the city. It's the city that hands out grant money. So sometimes you kind of have to figure out, well, I don't have an arts council. Well, who's kind of doing that role? In some cases, there may be, for example, I think in Sumter, they have a very big opera house. And there's been times when the opera house has brought in a lot of teaching artists and offered different opportunities for artists. There are different, so for example, like the Greenville has the Peace Center, there's a lot of, like in Spartanburg, the Chapman Cultural Center, which is now an arts council, but for a while, you kind of just, there may be a performance venue in your city that is kind of acting like an arts council and may have some opportunities for you, or it may even be that you can pitch something to them. And I think making proposals and making a pitch can be helpful, to say, hey, I noticed the Arts Commission has this arts education grant for arts councils. Have you ever thought about maybe, how can we do that? How can we make it happen? I got 3 other friends that are teaching artists. I bet we can, come up with something. So, I mean, I say too, if you call people, and advocate in your community. There's definitely too, I know the Arts Commission has funding specifically for some of, like Greenville is not on the list of people that need extra help, but I know that Bamberg County is. So there's definitely some counties in South Carolina that are eligible for more grants than some of the bigger cities. And those are places you could partner with your arts council or your city to see if you can get some of those funds or resources.
Well, thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Kimberly? And well, then our final panelist is giving us a national perspective. All right. Katie Rainey is the co-executive director of the Teaching Artists Guild, and she and her organization share teaching artist resources nationally. So, Katie, if you're up for it, take over the hearing.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm going to play a quick video first, mostly because my dogs have decided, as they do most moments, to start barking right now. They're at the back door. So I'm going to play it and also so you don't have to listen to me the whole time. But 1 second. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear this?
Hello, my name is Carrie Warren. I am the co-executive director of the Teaching Artists Guild. TAG, TAG, is a practitioner-led community which raises the visibility and development of artists who teach, like myself. We imagine a world where to be human is to be an artist, where every person has access to culturally relevant arts expression, where artists are honored and equitably paid. We work with partners at regional, state, national, and international levels to advocate for the work of teaching artists and to find pathways that will strengthen, develop, and evolve our field both within and outside of the sector. And we also provide support for teaching artists with tools to grow and thrive. We bring teaching artists together to collaborate and create and connect and learn from one another. We imagine new pathways to create work, new connections to strengthen the field, and new opportunities to create a stronger ecosystem in support of teaching artistry. With the arts being consistently underfunded, teaching artists do not have the benefits and services provided by a traditional career. TAG serves over 30,000 teaching artists in our networks across the country. So we believe our work matters because teaching artists matter.
All right.
As I'm in the midst of applying for residency right now.
Sorry, it was still rolling. Could you hear that? Did I break up at all? Hopefully not. Okay, great. I was having some connection issues earlier, but I'm glad to be here. Thank you all for having me. That was just like a quick snapshot of TAG. I know that we're almost at time, right? Like 2 minutes. No. Oh, what time do we go to?
You can go on. We're okay to go over.
Okay.
If
Well,
you'll hang with us.
okay. I'm going to just share my screen again one more time. It won't be a video this time, but so that I can walk through. These. All right. Well, it's of course started at the very end, didn't it? Okay, so I'm one of the co-executive directors of the Teaching Artists Guild. That was my co-executive director, Carrie Warren. We are a grassroots organization for teaching artists by teaching artists. So we're all working teaching artists. I came from a session with a student to this panel. So it's definitely very much a hands-on organization. We represent teaching artists from all over the country. We have regional networks from all over the country. Our structure at TAG is a sociocratic model, which means we kind of try to eschew the traditional nonprofit model. So we have co-executive directors. We only have a 3-person board, and that's just to maintain our nonprofit status. But we are governed entirely by a group of right now about 40 teaching artists from across the country who oversee the major decision making. So Carrie and I run the day-to-day. We do hire teaching artists here and there to run programs, to do professional development, that kind of thing. But then we meet quarterly as a larger national advisory committee group, which we have a meeting on March 5th. And then we have subcommittees who do the hands-on work, like our advocacy committee, our communications committee, programs, that kind of thing. So we're really a grassroots organization, but primarily what TAG does is we advocate for teaching artists on the ground because we don't have a teachers union, right? So we are taking kind of that step towards that. We're always like supporting people who are starting their own unions in school while we are unable to do it on a national level just quite yet. It has always been in the conversation as TAG has been alive, and TAG actually has been around since 1998 because we merged with the Association of Teaching Artists in 2020. So technically our organization is the Association of Teaching Artists doing business as the Teaching Artists Guild, but that doesn't really roll off the tongue. So we go with TAG. So we're really about one, the advocacy component, and two, the tools for teaching artists. So kind of the modern look of TAG was born out of the National Guild Conference in 2015, which I also happen to be the project manager on then. It's kind of very just like full circle for me, all these jobs I and TAG and everything. But that's where we created the Teaching Artist Manifesto, which is a postcard we send out to lots of people, but this is what we send to people who have no idea what a teaching artist is. This, as well as now we send out Eric Booth's new book, which is featured on our website. And I won't read the whole thing, but it is posted on our website. So that's one of the main advocacy tools. Our mission is to be practitioner-led and to raise the visibility and the development of artists who teach. This is our National Advisory Council. This is who makes up and runs TAG. This is just a little snapshot of who we are. While we do have a big New York presence and California, you can see we have been really, really trying to get to the rural areas. I'm actually in Little Rock, Arkansas, so I represent the South, or at least part of it. And you can see we've been really targeting the Midwest, but trying not to just be a coastal organization, but really bring the middle of the country together. So I'm going to go through really quick some of our useful tools for you all. And these are the bulk of why people seek out TAG on a day-to-day basis. So our biggest one, or our second biggest one really actually, is our TAG asset map, which works almost like a social media profile. But you go on TAG, you create a profile with your bio, your picture, you can list all the art forms you teach in, where you teach, are you willing to travel, what your rates are and everything, and it'll put your dot on the map. So I'm not on the website right now, but if I were to scroll in right here, you'd see my profile there in the middle of Arkansas, and that was my profile in the video that I made for that little video. And so all the dots represent different art forms. So purple there is like multidisciplinary or literary arts. I can't remember which one it is off the top of my head. I think red is theater. So the idea is that organizations and schools can go find you easily. I'm sure a lot of you have seen Arts Council's rosters and how they're usually just like static PDFs where somebody has to scroll through 40 like snapshots of, people, which really is not that useful to a school who's quickly trying to find a theater artist who's got some experience with, I'm not a theater artist. I don't know why I chose that. A literary artist who teaches creative nonfiction, whatever. So the idea is that you can go in here and quickly see a teaching artist in your area. And in the long run, we would like to have arts councils use this as their roster so that like on their websites, it would be zoomed in on the Arkansas Arts Council. It would be zoomed in on Arkansas, and you could easily find teaching artists in your area in Arkansas. This is by far the biggest tool used. We get about 17,000 visitors a month to this pay rate calculator. This was also born in 2015 when really pay transparency was at its lowest point for teaching artistry. And the folks who started building this really sought to not only make it transparent, but to help teaching artists all over the country use this to advocate for better wages. And it has been by far like so useful for teaching artists, but also organizations who have raised their rates because of it. Basically, you go in, you put where do you live and work, how many dependents are in your household, what's your level of experience, and what type of employment. So whether you're a contractor or an employee, which most people are independent contractors in this country as teaching artists, but there are some that are employed. And this is work tied to the Economic Development Institute, these numbers. So they're not perfect. If you go for your area and we're trying to perfect it, we have people all the time emailing me like, hey, this is great for an overview of Arkansas, but I would really like to know what's in Pulaski County, what the rate is. And we're like, we're not that fine-tuned yet, but we're working on it. We need funds to do that. But this will give you a ballpark idea of what you should be making as a teaching artist in your area, both hourly wise and as an overall yearly salary, just for that picture. And then we have our databases, which we are actually in the process of merging with ITAC because our databases, I will be quite frank, is not as user-friendly. And ITAC came up with this great way to basically have resources updated more often. And we felt like, why do two separate projects when we could all help each other? So, but right now we do have our national resource databases, our social justice databases, and during COVID, we had an enormous amount of resources for teaching artists. So that is in the process of getting updated, just in case you go search for that. We have profiles of all training programs across the country. So if you are a newer teaching artist, or if you're looking for some professional development, you can go to our website and look under just training programs under our resources, and you'll find a list. You can narrow it down by your area, your city, what you're looking for, trauma informed, whatever, and find some training in your area, as well as regional networks, which are kind of the backbone of TAG. I used to run a program called the Teaching Artist Project, which is TAP, so occasionally it slips out. Anyway, you can go and find your regional network. So, I can go find teaching artists in South Arts, or we have the teaching artists of the Mid-Atlantic group, and they're all kind of different, each regional network. Some are multiple states, some are cities across. Arkansas, I'm currently building with the Mississippi Arts Commission and the Memphis Orpheum Theater to build a kind of collective of teaching artists that we call regional network. And these folks really help keep TAG aware of the advocacy needs across the country, because, I'm just one teaching artist in Little Rock, Arkansas. My co-ED is one teaching artist in New York City. There's no way we can know what's happening in Montana, So the idea is that these regional networks, if there's a big issue, come to TAG leadership, come to the NAC meetings, and we work together to bring awareness and do what we can to advocate for the issue. We, of course, have a job board and an events calendar. Events calendar is free to post to. So if you have any events ever, please go post to it, and you don't need approval from us or anything. The job board is paid for organizations, but if you're a teaching artist and you want to post a job, just email us at info@teachingartist.com, and that's on our website too under the job board, and we'll post it for free. You don't have to pay for it. We believe organizations should pay for that. We also have our Insight articles, which TAG used to have a TAG quarterly magazine. It was a really beautiful magazine, but it just was very time consuming for such a grassroots organization. And we're looking to archive the back issues on our website. But right now we have kind of like a live newsreel or blog, however you want to look at it, where we pay teaching artists to write articles about what's happening in their area. So you can go on there and see, somebody recently wrote about their financial education in teaching artistry. Somebody wrote about a union in Chicago that was up and coming in a school. Our listening tours are something that happened during COVID. They developed where we were hosting these kind of town halls and gathering information from teaching artists about what was happening in their area, what their needs were, and we responded in certain ways. They have since morphed into lately, we just got done doing, I'll show you. This is our website, teachingartist.com. And these are where you can go find those resources. Also, we have What is a Teaching Artist Now, which we send to funders, and that shows Eric's book as well as a couple other things. But if you go down to our listening tour, this is a really great new resource that we just put on. We had a series of literary salons for teaching artists. So basically a whole bunch of teaching artists out there who were putting on these publications, and we wanted to highlight them and advocate for their work, and then also just share because it's really, really valuable information. So you'll get all these, there's the videos, we captured all of them, so you can go watch them. That merits with ITAC. Gene Johnstone's one of our former EDs. James Miles, I don't know if anyone knows him, but he's a fantastic teaching artist. Maria is one of our NAC members. Elise is a partner. And then, of course, Eric Booth did our last literary salon. Oh, well, that was it. That's the end of my presentation. So those are a little bit about the TAG tools. I'll drop the link in the chat right now. If you have issues on the website, getting an asset map profile started, which is also free. Everything is free for teaching artists. I should have mentioned that. You can email us at info@teachingartist.com. Either I or our web developer, Sean, will be on it in 2 seconds and get you helped. But those are really the primary resources that TAG has to share for teaching artists across the country. And then, of course, we recently had our first federally funded conference for teaching artists, national federal. No, ITAC has had the international one. We had our first and only so far federally funded national one, which was in 2022. We would love to do it again, but we're working on that. We'll see what will happen. Where it takes a lot of funds. So, but yeah, so those are the biggest resources. Are there any questions?
Wow. Thank you, Katie. That was great.
Hope I didn't go through that too quickly. I recognize it was time. So
No, it was rich. It was really rich. My mind is like blowing up right now between what Hassan started with and Kimberly and you and Madeline have said. Anybody have any questions for Katie about specifics about the Teaching Artists Guild? All right. Well, Kimberly.
Hey, I have a question.
Oh, there's one. Who is this? Dove?
Sorry about that. This is Dove. I'm kind of traveling a bit, so I didn't want to show the. Can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. I had a question. I guess I just wanted to know, or to make sure. So if artists wanted to, I guess, expand outside of the local level and wanted to try at, the national level, arts integration opportunities, what would you say? What would be the recommendation, or how does that happen?
yeah, I mean, I first would point you to our job board because we get a lot of remote opportunities as well. And those are still, I know, like after COVID, everybody wanted to not be online, but there are still remote opportunities happening. And like, that's the best way to do it nationally. But also just to get involved with us, we have, our NAC members, our National Advisory Committee members, are from all over the country, and we all become friends, like a tight knit community, and start sharing resources and sharing job opportunities and go to conferences together. So that's really one of the best ways. But if that feels too overwhelming too, starting with your regional network, going on our website and finding what region would best suit you. And if you have any questions about that, feel free to email me at info@teachingartist.com. But those would be the two biggest ways I'd say to start making those connections with us and with your regional network.
Okay, thank you.
Others?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Well, I've looked at the calculator that on Katie's thing, and that's very interesting for people to take a look at. I think in some ways, though, it may give you an idea of what the people are hiring you make. But when you if you have to set your own prices, it becomes rather complicated because an hourly rate and a traveling performer and things like whether you get lodging or a per diem and figuring that all in. Sometimes when that all gets figured up, that gets divided in by how many hours you spent there. And looks like you're some kind of a musical mercenary. But the reality is sometimes it's pretty hard to make it a profitable experience when you have to travel. The last question about how would you go national is very complicated. So Katie, on those hourly rate things, would you assume that would include just travel expenses, lodging, or would the hourly rate be your fee?
So that's a really great question. Thank you for bringing that up. So the hourly fee that the pay rate calculator shows you is purely for like facilitation and planning. So we hope to develop it further. There is, however, on that same page, we developed a budget for different art forms. We worked with different teaching artists of different art forms to create a spreadsheet template for teaching artists to use, which says like, hey, don't forget to bill for this, for supplies, for space, for your travel, for whatever, all the things that you might forget to bill. And then of course we constantly, because the pay rate calculator is not perfect, we always get new teaching artists emailing us saying like, hey, like I did the calculator, but like I'm here in, you know, Memphis and this is my experience so far. What should I be advocating for myself? So a lot of the times it's just a one-on-one conversation with people. But yeah, thank you for pointing that out.
Good. Others?
I have a question that could maybe be for Katie or anybody else, but the pay rate calculator is so helpful. And I'm also wondering if anybody has a resource that's sort of like a like contract or agreement, maybe that I'm not missing anything. I know that, so I work through, primarily I've been working with Engaging Creative Minds in Charleston and Berkeley County. And so they kind of take care of all of that. So now that I'm kind of branching out, I'm trying to sort of put together, okay, I need to remember that I'm asking them, you know, do I need to have another adult in the room, and things that I want to kind of make sure I'm not missing. So I'm just curious, or maybe that's something you guys can share later, but if you have suggestions or templates for any of us.
I don't know if anybody else does. We have been asked that before, and that's something we've been working on. That's where that template budget at least came out of. We were like, we know we can make this now. Contracts are so tricky that we haven't created a template one yet. But if you email me, I can put you on the mailing list for when I think we're developing one, honestly. Like that question has been asked so much that we might just put one on the website of like, hey, this is a really general thing, but
yeah,
okay, cool. It's a jumping off point. Yeah.
I kind of find when I go to schools, because I work, you know, I run Smart Arts, but I actually work as a teaching artist in the state as well. And I mean, most schools are asking for a quote and an invoice, but then there's not really, I would say, a contract, which I haven't really run into issues with that, because most of the time the school is using ABC money. They're like, hey, I got an ABC grant, and can you give us a quote and an invoice and all that kind of stuff. In regards to like having someone else in the room, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're not a certified teacher, they're not allowed to leave you in the room alone. And so I definitely remind, because I've definitely seen that teacher get a cup of coffee and I've never seen her again situations. They're like, let me just run to the restroom. And then you're like, is that teacher coming back? You know, I definitely remind, you know, I am a certified teacher, but I do not tell them that when I go to a school. I'm like, hey, just, you know, as a reminder, you know, you have to have a certified teacher in the room, you know. And also I mentioned that, you know, when you're a teaching artist, that's professional development for those teachers. They can learn tips and tricks from what you're doing with their kids. And so if they're checking email the whole time, that is a missed opportunity. You know, it's just, I do have a sheet sometimes that I send of my expectations of what the teacher is going to be doing while I'm working with their kids. And sometimes addressing that ahead of time will help with some of that.
Right.
And if I may jump in, webinar number 1 specifically talked about contracts,
cool.
paperwork, things like that. So if you review that, you'll find a lot of information.
Awesome.
Other questions? Well, I will turn it back to Kimberly Mott.
I will be very fast. It would not be a teaching artist webinar if we didn't have a really short evaluation survey for you at the end. So the link is in the chat box. You can click on it now and you can finish it after our talk if you want, but if you could take 3 to 5 minutes to give us some feedback on these webinars, it really helps us to develop things that are relevant for you, which is what our goal is. We want to make sure that these webinars are relevant and useful. So please give us a few minutes of feedback, and I will hand it now back over to Jef.
All right, I'm going to talk like one of those commercials where they get all the words in 30 seconds. Get your fingers ready to print screen, because the next slide that Kimberly's going to show is information about every organization that has spoken here today. So Kimberly, if you'll put up the slide and everybody do your print screen idea. There we go. We got Hassan, we got Kimberly, Madeline, Kimberly, Katie, and me. All right, there we are. So if you've got that, these are the websites where you can find all of us. All right, let's go on. Our next webinar will be on April 23rd, 2024 from 4 to 5:30 p.m. And we will be sending out information about the topic and the details in a couple of weeks. I'd like everybody join me in thanking all of our panelists, Kimberly Gibbs, Hassan Anderson, Kimberly Mott, Katie Rainey, and Madeline McGirt for all of their wonderful thoughts today. Yay! Yay! And the crowd goes crazy. I'd also like to thank, as you can see on the screen, all the folks at the South Carolina Arts Commission who've been so helpful and involved in this project, especially Kimberly, Amanda, Ashley, and Kevin, as well as all our partner organizations, the South Carolina Arts Commission, the South Carolina Department of Education, the South Carolina ABC Institute, and ArtsGrowSC. And if you'll stop the share. Dun, dun, dun. Thank you all. You guys were great. And we hope you come back again. And I'd like to thank all of the panelists and all of you for sticking with us. I think this was rich. All right, so be well. Happy
Thank you all.
Thank you.